we're here and we're very happy to welcome as our speaker Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, President, Divine Shakti Foundation, Parmat Nikatan, Rishikesh, an organization focused on women's empowerment, education, and health. She oversees a variety of humanitarian projects, teaches meditation, lectures, writes, counsels individuals and families, and serves as a unique female voice of spiritual leadership throughout India and the world. She's a graduate of Stanford University and holds a PhD in pediatric neuropsychology. In 1996, Sadhviji's travels took her to India, specifically to Rishikesh and Parmat Nikatan Ashram. She moved there permanently in April 1997 and was officially ordained into the order of sannyas by her guru, Swami Chidanand Saraswati, on June 11, 2000. The ashram is one of India's largest spiritual institutions, where Sadhviji serves as International Director, Secretary General of the Global Interfaith WASH Alliance, an international organization dedicated to ensuring clean water, sanitation, and hygiene for all. And she is also director of the International Yoga Festival, an annual event that attracts participants from over 100 countries. In addition, she also serves on the United Nations Advisory Council on Religion and on the steering committees of the International Partnership for Religion and Sustainable Development and the Moral Imperative to End Extreme Poverty, a campaign by the United Nations and the World Bank. She's an active member of the G100 Club, a global group of women leaders formed to promote societal transformation. She's been awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by President Joe Biden for her lifetime commitment to volunteer service. The Bharat Ki Lakshmi Award by Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, for her contributions to public good as an embodiment of Ma Lakshmi. Awarded an honorary Doctor of Philosophy degree by Jagand Rai University for her leadership and contributions to spirituality and service, and the National Bharat Gaurav Pride of India Award for excellence and service in the field of yoga. She is the author of Hollywood to the Himalayas, A Journey of Healing and Transformation by God's Grace, and her most recent book, Come Home to Yourself, A Journey from Ego to Essence. And this is the beautiful book, and we do have copies here if you want them. And I welcome you, and please come and tell us your wonderful story.
What a beautiful blessing and a beautiful joy to be here. I had the wonderful privilege of being here with Puja Swami Sarvapriyananda ji in a beautiful snow-covered wintry January day last year, and we spoke about finding an appropriate Sunday where I would be able to come and have the beautiful blessing of sharing with all of you. And it's taken a year and a half, but here we are, and I'm so happy to be here when I first, I'll share more in a moment, but just when I first came to India, now almost 30 years ago, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about Sanatan Dharma. I didn't know anything about the Vedic tradition. I didn't know anything. And one of the very, very first books that I was given was the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. And I had never practiced meditation. I didn't even know what it was. I mean, I had heard the word, but it was never something that I had learned or practiced. And as I would read the gospel, I would have these experiences where I'd be reading. And then the next thing I knew, I would open my eyes. And the book was down beside me, and I was sitting cross-legged and had been in a beautiful state of meditation, sometimes for many minutes, sometimes for a couple of hours. And I had no recollection of ever having said, "Oh, that's beautiful, let me now put down the book and close my eyes." But there was something so powerful in the transmission from the book that it just automatically brought me into that state of meditation. So it's a very, very beautiful blessing to be here. As Diane shared, our theme today is shifting from ego to essence. And at the offset, I think it's important to talk about why would we even want to do that? And then we'll look at the how. But why? I mean, why bother? We're living in a world of curated online identities. We're living in a world of achieving more, acquiring more, having more. Why would we even want to focus on shifting from ego, which seems to be the thing to get ahead in the world, into essence? And I'm going to give you a very personal and practical reason. And that's because when we live with ego, we suffer. It's not that we have to shift because some scripture says we must shift. It's not that we have to shift because some seer or sage or saint or mystic told us hundreds or thousands of years ago to shift. It's very practical today. When we live as ego, we suffer. When we shift into living as essence, as truth, the suffering ends. This is what I think of and speak about as the shift from the Hollywood way of thinking to the Himalayan way of thinking. Diane mentioned that my memoir, which came out a few years ago, is called Hollywood to the Himalayas, or as we say, the Himalayas. I'm learning in speaking to non-Hindi speaking audiences that we have to say Himalayas, but I think here we can say Himalayas. So yes, it's the journey of my life, but it's not the journey of your lives. It's not the journey of the lives of almost anyone who's read the book or heard the teachings, but the teachings are just as pertinent and powerful and applicable for everybody. And that's because it's a mindset shift. It's not just about the body goes from point A to point B. My point A happened to be Hollywood, where I grew up. My point B happened to be the Himalayas and sacred Rishikesh, India, on the banks of the Ganga. But it's a shift in how we think that really is ego to essence, and it really is suffering to an end of suffering. The Hollywood way of thinking is the way of thinking that tells us you are your body. You are its size, you are its shape, you are its color, you are its history, you are what's happened to it, you are its career, its relationships, its roles. That's who you are. And we suffer because we're never smart enough or successful enough or beautiful enough or popular enough, or any of the scales that we want to achieve. We're never quite enough. Even on a spiritual level, then we start to feel I'm not pure enough, I'm not spiritual enough, I'm not deep enough, I'm not wise enough, I haven't read enough, I haven't learned enough, I haven't meditated enough. And not only do we suffer, but we bring suffering unto others. Because that way of thinking, whether we call it just ego, whether we call it ignorance, whether we call it the Hollywood way of thinking that's now pervasive across the world, is the way of thinking that pits us against each other. It teaches us to see ourselves as objects, and therefore to see others as objects. And others are objects who either can be used to get ahead, to get what I want, whether momentary pleasure, whether a role, whether a relationship, whether a stepping stone, a contact, whatever it may be, or whether it's someone who needs to be removed out of the way so that I can get ahead. So many times, in Rishikesh, can't tell you how many times people have come and have said something along the lines of, can you please bless me? Or can you please give me, a powerful mantra? Or can you please talk to Lord Ganeshji to bless me to remove this obstacle of this person from my life? We see each other as obstacles. People that we're competing with, people we have to remove in order to get ahead, people whose mere presence or way of being steals our peace. It's the, oh my God, I was so peaceful and happy, and then you came home. Like, just don't talk to me, just don't disturb my peace. And so whether it's competition, whether it's relationship conflict, we live in this state of we suffer and we bring suffering to others. And we bring suffering to the planet. When we feel separate, Mother Earth becomes a resource, natural resources. And the water and the trees and the air and all of the other species with whom we share this beautiful planet become resources for us to use, to fulfill, to achieve, to attain, to create, to buy, whatever we want. So we suffer, and we bring suffering to others. And when we shift into essence, into what I call the Himalayan way of thinking, it's a shift that tells us you have a body, but you're not the body. You are soul. You are spirit. You are source. You are divinity. You are Brahman. You are love. You are truth. You are peace, however you think about it. Here in our Vedanta society, we know, who are we? Aham Brahmasmi. We are Sat Chit Anand. And in that shift, our suffering ends, and we start being instruments of peace and healing in the world, instead of instruments of harm. So that's the why. Why do we care from ego to essence? Because it's the end of suffering. In ego, we suffer. It's like the beautiful prayer that I know Swami Sarvapriyananda ji begins with. The beautiful prayer of Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamsoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Oh God, lead us from that darkness of ignorance and unreality and falsehood in which we identify as the one who is born, who changes and who dies, and in which darkness and ignorance we suffer and bring suffering unto others. Lead us from that to the light of truth, in which we realize and remember that we were never born. We never die. And in that remembrance, our suffering ends. In most of our spiritual practices, in most of the world, but even in spiritual traditions, lineages, we're constantly looking to somehow get more, have more, become more. And it's beautiful when what you're looking to do is meditate more, serve more, learn more, dive deeper. But even that can very subtly lead us into the ignorance of thinking that in the present moment, as I am, in this breath, I'm not full and whole and complete. And so what I have found is that the spiritual practice is much more an undoing than a doing. It's much more that removal of the ignorance than it is about the attainment of something else. One of my favorite stories is the story of the temple of the Golden Buddha in, it was either Thailand or Cambodia, I can't remember which, but one or the other, I think it was Thailand. And it was this beautiful temple with this beautiful golden Buddha. And when the invaders came in, they were pillaging, they were melting, they were breaking, they were stealing all of the gold. And so the monks of the temple of the Golden Buddha covered the gold Buddha with clay so that the Buddha would seem worthless to the invaders. And the good news was that the Buddha survived, but the monks did not. And so we ended up with a temple of the clay Buddha. Nobody knew the Buddha was gold. People are worshiping this clay Buddha. And one day the monks in the temple of the clay Buddha are cleaning the Buddha. And they see this little glitter. Something is shining through the clay. And they slowly start to clean it a little more. And something is glittering more and more and more, and slowly they remove the clay and they discover it's actually gold inside. And I love that story because it's such a beautiful metaphor for how so many of us live. The core of who we are according to our spiritual tradition. I was just sharing yesterday evening in New Jersey in a crowd of mostly non-Indians that, we don't believe in original sin. We believe in original divinity. But that original divinity gets covered up by ignorance, maya, illusion, and all of the forms it takes. And so we then try to get divinity, get gold. So if you imagine we're gold at the core, but then we're covered with this clay of ignorance, and then we are moving through the world trying to obtain, acquire gold to become golden through what we buy, through what we achieve, through our power, through our roles, through our beauty, through our popularity, our prestige, whatever it may be. Even through our spiritual knowledge, right? Look at me, look at how gold I've become. I can recite this, recite that, recite this. We're constantly looking for something to stick on top of us that will make us feel whole and full and golden and pure and enough. But the story reminds us it's not about sticking gold onto the clay. It's about removing the clay and asking ourselves, what is that clay that keeps me from living in that fullness, in that wholeness? And that's the ego. That's the ignorance. I know for me, when I came to India, I was 25. I was as Diane shared, in the midst of getting a PhD. And I was fully identified with my role, with my history, with who I thought I was. And there was ego around with it. Yeah, I graduated from Stanford. Yes, I was a straight A student. Yes, I was this. Yes, I was that. But even more deeply, it was all the ways that I suffered. It was all of the challenges, all of the identifications of me that I felt were not enough, were not right, were impure, were this, were that. And when I stood on the banks of Ganga and had this extraordinary spiritual transformation, awakening moment experience, not only did it show me that everything around me, everything in the world was divine, but it also showed me that I was as well. And that I was not separate from that divinity. And that's the essence. That's the core of who we are. And that's where the working with our mind is so critical. One of my favorite teachings from the Upanishads says, Man eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayo. The mind is the key, the master key, to your bondage or to your freedom. It's not about other people. It's not about what they're going to do for you or how annoying they may be or how obnoxious they are or what you just need them to do so that finally you can be happy. It's not about the traffic. Right? We all saw that today. Here we are, able to be in peace. Even, we ended up walking all over the place in different directions. Things keep changing in the outer world. The traffic, the stock market, the weather, the people around us. But that our mind is that key to our bondage or to our freedom. And that's what frees us, because most of us feel like it's something around us, it's something outside that's going to give it to us or that's blocking us. So I thought, let me share with you today a very beautiful, very simple, but very deep and very powerful mantra that my guru gave me when I first came to India. And then we will open it up for any questions that anyone here has. I know that Swamiji has these beautiful times that are dedicated only to questions, but since we have one time together, so we'll do both. I'll share and then we'll open it up for questions. So it was a very beautiful and very simple mantra that over the last now 29 years has changed and deepened for me so much that in the beginning it was really simply about learning Sanskrit words, learning some teachings of the Hindu Dharma. But as the years have gone by, has gotten so deep for me and such a powerful anchor. And the mantra simply says, engage yourself in karma under the shade of Dharma with an awareness of Brahma. Now, that was how it was given to me, but of course you could also say with an awareness of Brahman, whether you take it as Brahma, the creative aspect of the divine, whether we say Brahman as the supreme reality, the Satchit Anand, all of that, the infinite, eternal. Either way, it doesn't matter. It's the awareness of that divine. However you connect, however you understand. But here's what's so beautiful. So in the beginning, I thought, okay, engage yourself in karma. Means do right action. But as the years have gone by, it's gotten so deep because, of course, in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna reminds us you cannot not act. You're always acting. It's not the guru saying don't be lazy. We're always acting. Sitting on the couch, watching soap operas, eating potato chips, that's an action. But as Yamraj explains to Nachiketa so beautifully, you have a choice. Which path of action are you going to walk? Do you walk the path of Preya? Do you walk the path of Shreya? You're creating your own destiny. Your action is creating your reality today and your destiny tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. I always say right here, right now, is the pre of that which is predestined for you. Right? People ask, oh, do you believe in predestiny? Like, is everything predestined? Yeah, it is. Not thousands and thousands of years ago in the clouds by some amorphous divine sitting there, deciding who's going to have what fate befall them. But through our choices today, through our action today, through our karma today, we are actually creating our destiny. So engage yourself in conscious action. And in that action, remember that ultimately you are just an instrument in the hands of the divine. Nimitta matram bhava. Act with the feeling, with the awareness, I am just an instrument in the hands of the divine. However you flow through me, use me. And as you do those actions, to stay anchored in the divine. There's a beautiful teaching in the prayers that we chant every morning at Parmarth Nikatan that says, Mukh me ho Ram Nam, Ram Seva Hat me. Let the name of the divine be on your lips. Let that work be in your hands. Let yourself constantly be remembering the divine while you are doing the work. So it's not either or. It's not, do I meditate or do I work? It's not, do I have faith or do I change things in the world? It's yes and. It's very similar to the beautiful teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, of Mamnu Smard Yudhyacha. Remember me and fight the war. It's that same teaching of yes and, anchored in the divine, anchored in presence, anchored in faith, anchored in knowledge, anchored in awareness. Remembering God, when Bhagwan Krishna says, remember me, it also means remember you, because you are not separate from God. So it's not just remember God, God will take care of everything, don't worry. It's also remember you as that reflection of, manifestation of, embodiment of the divine right here on earth at this moment. Remember that power. And this is so important these days when people are facing so many challenges, is to remember that presence of the divine in us, as us, through us. And we act. We remember the divine and we fight the war. Whatever that particular duty is in our lives. But it's not either or. Because if I just fight the war, then hey, it's all about me. I'm this great warrior, don't you know who I am? Get out of my way. And it comes with all of the ego and all of the stories and all of the frustration then when it doesn't go my way. But it's also not, oh, anyway, everything is in God's hands. I'll just sit here and let God do everything. I mean, anyway, God is there, so why do I have to do anything? God is not separate from us. And our embodiment of our Dharma, which we'll come to in a moment, is a critical, perfect part of the perfection of the universe. It's not perfection minus us. It's perfection including us, perfection pervading us. And that brings us into the aspect of Dharma. Because a lot of times people also ask, well, what about success? Like, does being spiritual mean thou shalt not succeed, or that we have to stay poor? Or what if I want to have nice things? No problem. Our scriptures, our history are full of stories of divine beings, ranging from Bhagwan Krishna as king of Dwarka, a city made of gold, to King Janak, to Mirabai. We have beautiful stories of kings, princesses, who are embodiments of divine devotion, embodiments of the divine, embodiments of wisdom, embodiments of non-attachment. If it comes, beautiful. But just not chasing it in such a way that we forsake that which is real for that which is unreal. That we forsake that which is eternal for that which is temporary. And then under the shade of Dharma. Now, Dharma we could talk about all day, but I want to do it in just like 2 or 3 minutes so that we have time to get into Brahma, Brahman, both, and then questions. So Dharma, here's what I think is the most critical aspect of Dharma. And this is a beautiful audience because I know that you spend every week, or for some of you maybe several times a week, sitting here learning. So we don't have to go into the nuts and bolts and nitty-gritties. But here's the piece that I think is really critical. A question that arises a lot is, how do I know my Dharma? Yes, I want to live by Dharma, but how do I know my Dharma? Yeah, we all know the universal Dharma of realize the truth, wake up, move from darkness to light, from unreal to real. We all know the universal Dharma of living with integrity and honesty and generosity, etc. But what about our individual Dharma? How do we know that? And this is where being quiet is so important. Do you know, I read an amazing statistic. Do you know that every single day, the average person these days takes in as much data, as much information every single day as the average scholar, academic scholar who spent their entire lives learning, did throughout their lifetime in the 17th century. Now you imagine you're a 17th century scholar, it's just a few hundred years ago. How much you take in during your entire lifetime of study is the average amount of data that we are all taking in every single day. There is a lot of noise. And it is not surprising that we cannot figure out what is my Dharma. How is that voice speaking to us? Because it's going to come from within. It's not going to come from an equation. It's not going to drop out of the cloud. It's not going to be on a billboard. It's going to come from that sense of knowing inside. The same way that a caterpillar knows how to become a butterfly, the same way that an apple seed knows how to become a tree and then give apples. But we have to be quiet. And this is where the practice of Maun, silence, mantra, japa, that quiets our mind, our practices of meditation, are so important. Because it creates that stillness in which we can hear. I always say we are like the caterpillar who misses the signal to climb the tree and become the butterfly because it's so busy complaining that, the millipede has 1,000 legs and the centipede has 100 legs and it's not fair, and why did the millipede get so many legs and the centipede get so many legs, and why do I, not have enough legs? And its mind is so loud and busy that it misses the call that says, hey, climb the tree. And that's what's going on for so many of us. So we need that quiet. And we need courage to really be able to live that which may not be what our family members or what our neighbors think we should become. Not everyone is destined to be a doctor or an engineer or a business person. Thank God. Right? I mean, thank God that some people are destined to be artists and musicians and kindergarten teachers and tree planters and landscapers and authors and poets, monks. Right? I mean, thank God we've got this variety. But these days, there's such a pressure of Dharma, be this, achieve that, but everybody else is, but your brother is, but your cousins are, but everybody in the family is. And we have to remember that we're not here on earth with the Dharma of making the neighbors jealous. So many lives end up ruined and wasted wondering about ki samne wale kya sochenge. What are the neighbors going to think? And in really embodying our Dharma is to have that courage of how is the divine flowing through me? How can I be that nimit, that instrument, that vehicle, that vessel? And then lastly, I mean, there's so much more to say about it, but just lastly, with the awareness of the divine, and again, whether you say the awareness of Brahma, the creative aspect, the awareness of Brahman, both. But what it does is it makes our entire lives our spiritual practice. Otherwise, the way most of us live is, I have this beautiful spiritual practice, but oh my God, it's just 15 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours or whatever we can dedicate every day. That's my holy spiritual time. And the rest is my job, or the rest is my errands or my family obligations, and I hate it. And why do I have to do that? And how can I have more spiritual time? And I want to leave this behind and just live a spiritual life. But what our scriptures remind us is that a spiritual life isn't about away from the world. It's living spiritually in the world. It's every minute, it's every moment. It's how you speak to the people on the street, to the guy you're buying a pretzel from, or the person pumping your gas, or whoever it may be. It's how you move through the world, seeing all of the people, seeing every species, seeing the leaves, seeing the trees, seeing the water, seeing the flowers, as that embodiment of the divine. And if you live with that awareness of the divine pervading all, then everything becomes your spiritual practice. Grocery shopping is a spiritual practice. Being stuck in traffic is a spiritual practice. Walking down the street is a spiritual practice. Because everything is either, depending on how you think about it, is either created by or pervaded by, or both, the divine. And this is a beautiful, beautiful way to actually be able to carry that spiritual practice into your life. You know, one of the beautiful meditations that we do, that I'm sure Puja Swamiji has led you through, is the meditation of Niti Niti, right? Not this, not this. But you can do it also during the day. It's not only in a meditative practice with your legs crossed and your eyes closed, sitting in the dark. As you move through your day, as you are taking on projections from people outside, oh, you're beautiful, oh, you're ugly, oh, you're wonderful, oh, you're awful, whatever the world is throwing at you, we just remember, Niti, niti, not this, not this. And of course, with the not this comes, well, what is it then? If I am not that projection, if I'm not the body, if I'm not the falsehood, well, then what am I? I am that divine. And it reminds us every minute, every moment as we move through the world, what we are not, and therefore what we are. And so as you move through the world, as you catch your reflection in a mirror or a shop window or whatever it is, and the mind goes, oh, you're looking really good today. Remind yourself, niti, niti. Or if you catch the reflection and you think, oh my God, you've gotten fat, or you're hunching, or look at yourself. Niti, niti. And as the world throws projections at you, you just respond inside, niti, niti, not this, not this. And within that awareness of what I am not, emerges what I am. So it's a way of clearing the clay to re-remember that gold. And that's what our beautiful practices give us. And that's what for me has been such an extraordinary blessing to realize in these almost 3 decades living in spiritual India. And I want to stop here so that we do have time for whatever questions that anyone may have. I don't know if we have a cordless or not, but even if not, it's relatively small. So yeah, just raise your hand. I always say there's no such thing as a stupid question or silly question. So no problem. In the meantime, before the cordless mic comes, do you want to just stand and you can be loud? Yeah, sure.
Excuse me.
She has it for you.
Hi, my name is Megan. It's really nice to see you here. The last time I saw you was in Rishikesh. Thank you. My question is about divine timing, and how do we trust it, and how do we enjoy it in the meantime?
Divine timing, yeah. Patience. My guru always says you have 2 choices. Either have patience or become a patient. And I really think that it is simply a process of that re-remembrance. I mean, that's the Gyan Yoga piece, is we remember. I mean, nobody who's pregnant would walk into their OBGYN at 3 months and say, take it out now, I can't wait any longer. We'd understand, well, then you're going to lose your baby. If you take out a fetus at 3 months, you don't have a baby. We know, no matter how anxious we may be, no matter how excited we may be to see that being emerge, no matter how ready we may feel to be that mother, we understand, if I don't give it the full 9 months, it's not going to work. If you plant seeds, here we are in New York, where in the wintertime it's cold, the ground is frozen. If you plant seeds and you somehow had a magic wand, such that in January you could convince that seed to crack open and sprout, it would die. You would kill any possibility that that seed had of ever becoming a tree. And so to just re-remember that with the same awareness that we know about babies and seeds, that things take time. And to just trust that divine timing. And every time that you feel yourself getting impatient, think about being a mother with a 3-month fetus and how absolutely foolish it would be to try to convince the doctor to take it out. And to just allow yourself to trust, allow yourself to trust, allow yourself to trust. So this is really a beautiful merging of what you could think of as Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. The awareness, the wisdom, and the faith and the love. And of just knowing, for me, it's so clear to me that no matter what religion we may be, no matter how we may conceive of the divine, that there is no possibility of a divine wisdom, a divine plan that turns every caterpillar into a butterfly, but that wouldn't work through us for us to also blossom and grow into exactly what we are meant to be when the time is right. But if that caterpillar came out of the cocoon too soon, it would just be liquid. There's a beautiful story, actually, of a man who walks out of his house one day and he sees a cocoon hanging from a branch, and the cocoon is kind of swinging back and forth, and he sees a little crack come in it, and a head pops out. And he can see this butterfly like trying to squish its way through this little crack in the cocoon. And he decides to be very compassionate, and he goes in the house and he gets this little pair of scissors, and he ever so gently and carefully cuts the cocoon so the butterfly can come out. And as it does, it goes splat on the ground. And the guy picks it up and keeps trying to make it fly, but the butterfly can't fly because its wings are wet and shriveled. And it turns out that the actual process of squishing its way through a tiny crack in the cocoon is what squishes the liquid from the inside of the body into the wings so that the butterfly has wings that can fly. So just know that that same divine that has figured out everything for a caterpillar and a seed certainly has figured everything out for you. Yeah, beautiful. Yes.
All right, thank you for putting everything in such a in such simple form. My question is about the conscious versus the subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And we create our karma through, our conscious. And also, I think of it as the different stages of sleep. We're in awake state, then we go into some REM state, then we're in a state that we are totally unaware of what's happening to us. And then we wake up and we think this is reality, where it's probably not reality of who we are. So could you just speak to the conscious versus subconscious?
Sure.
And how that works?
Sure. So, unfortunately, we do actually accrue karmic fruit for things that we do, whether we're doing them consciously or unconsciously. It would be really nice if we could just say to the universe, "Oh, I didn't mean that. Oh, that wasn't me. Oh, I'm so sorry. Didn't mean it. I don't know what came over me." But unfortunately, we actually do accrue karmic fruit for whatever action we do, whether we are in a state of full consciousness, whether we are in the unconscious throes of anger or greed or lust or ego or just ignorance, whether we're drunk, whether we're on drugs, whether we're sleepwalking, literally or figuratively. And this is where, when we talk about destiny and creating our destiny, why shifting your state from unconscious or subconscious to conscious is so important. It's why so many of the world's spiritual traditions, not only Sanatana Dharma, focus on mindfulness, presence, be here now. Because if you're not here, then you're on subconscious autopilot. And what we know about our subconscious is that it's mostly formed during the first 7 years of our life. If you think about a computer, that which the computer is programmed with is that which you're going to get out of the computer. Most of our autopilot, automatic programming happens in the first 7 years of our life. Up to about 12, but most of it within the first 7. That means our family of origin. It means whatever experiences we may have had, whatever teachings about ourselves, about the world we may have taken in, directly, indirectly. Unless you were raised very blessedly by people who were basically enlightened, your subconscious is not the place from which you want to act. For most of us, our subconscious programming is not our highest state. Because most of us were raised by people who were not enlightened, doing the best they could, but young, struggling, confused, unsure. You know, most of our parents were in their 20s when they had us. Depending on what our subconscious programming was, is how we operate when we are on autopilot. And this is why practices of japa, of meditation, of just mindfulness, mindful walking, is so important to enable us to access that highest level state of being. I mean, could you imagine if, you spoke about the different stages of sleep. Could you imagine if in REM state, when we're dreaming, fortunately, in REM state, unless you have a neurological disorder, our bodies are paralyzed in REM state. It's why we don't actually act out our dreams. There are certain disorders that prevent the body from being paralyzed, but in general, our bodies are paralyzed in REM state. Our eyes are moving, rapid eye movement, but our bodies are paralyzed. Otherwise, we'd literally be acting out our dreams. But I mean, could you imagine if you were actually quite literally acting out your dream and accruing karmic fruit for it? That would be a troublesome situation. But many of us are just as unconscious as we move through our lives. And it's why we find ourselves saying things like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, that wasn't me. At which point we have to ask ourselves, well, who was it? Of course it was you. It was just unconscious you, subconscious you, programmed you. So the more you want to have agency over creating your present moment and your tomorrow, the best way to do it is live from a conscious state. Bring the mind right here, right now, so that you can choose. That's the engage yourself in karma, like conscious action. Those are the choices. That's karma yoga. Yoga in action, action as yoga. Yeah, and it's a beautiful practice, and it's critical. It's the only way to create a destiny that is actually what we want. Beautiful. Yes.
Hi. My question is, how does one know their individual dharma?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, there is not an equation for it. I mean, it would be so nice to say, just put in your age, put in the latitude and longitude of where you were born, and yet going back to what I was saying about the caterpillar and the seed, to me, both in my deep belief and faith, but also in what I've seen in my life and the life of so many people, we actually know inside. Deep within us, we know. The problem is we have all of these voices telling us something else. So we know within ourselves, this is what I want to do. And by the way, we don't only have one dharma in life. It's a big mistake a lot of people make is, oh, I'm going to find that one thing. We have a lot of different dharma. The other mistake that people make, and especially in this country, you don't see it so much in India, but it's much more in the West that's been influenced much more by kind of a new age co-opting of spiritual teachings and concepts, is the idea that somehow when you find your dharma, it's going to be romantic, it's going to be glamorous, it's going to, put you on the cover of magazines, it's going to be lucrative, and then everybody's going to love you, and you just have to find that thing. Look at Arjuna. Core teaching on Dharma. Bhagavad Gita, 700 verses on Dharma. There was nothing romantic or glamorous or fun about what Arjuna had to do. But it was his Dharma. What he had to do was listen to Krishna and trust Krishna. I mean, essentially, in just the most basics of it, here we have a conversation. Krishna speaking to Arjuna, that's the Gita. Krishna's telling him what to do. Arjuna says, Karishe vachanam tava, I will do whatever you say. Right at the end, after telling him everything, Krishna's like, but now it's up to you. You have total free will. And Arjuna says, I will do whatever you say. Karishe vachanam tava. That's where the surrender and the faith comes in. But think about it. Does it make sense in any concept of a divine plan, any religious tradition, that a caterpillar would know how to turn into a butterfly? That a seed would know how to turn into a tree and give apples? That a bird would know how to fly? That a dog would know not to fly? Right? I mean, that a dog could chase a bird or a monkey up to the top of a building, and when the bird flies off or the monkey leaps off, the dog doesn't. I mean, you don't see dogs go splat on the ground because they thought they could fly like the bird. There is an intelligence, a divine intelligence. The problem is that we are, as I was saying, like the caterpillar, whose mind is so busy and full that we don't hear the voice. And so it really requires what we call shravan, listening, samarpan, what we call surrender, and sadhana, that spiritual practice, to first be able to listen and hear, to then be able to surrender to it, and then to have the practice to fine-tune our instrument to be able to do that. But here's the beautiful last piece about it. It's not all up to you. If you think about everything, so here in the room we have this microphone, we have lights, we have fans, we have cameras. Every one of them is running through electricity. If the electricity went out, not the lights, not the fans, not the mic, not the cameras that are plugged in, nothing would work. The same electricity is flowing through all of them. The fan is giving air, the lights are giving lights, the mic's giving sound, the camera's saving it so other people can watch it later on. Different vehicles, different instruments, different channels for that same electricity, the same power, the same energy. It's not that the electricity is somehow changing shape or form, it's just because it is a different instrument, comes out as a piece of toast in your toaster. It comes out as a smoothie from your blender. But it's just one electricity. And in the same way, to realize we're instruments. And if we can just work on fine-tuning our instruments through our practice of Jnana Yoga, of Bhakti Yoga, of Karma Yoga, it's going to flow through us exactly as we are meant to be. But the blender should never, try to make toast or to record a lecture or to blow air. Right? If your blender tries to blow air, you end up with smoothie on the ceiling. Right? If the blender thinks it's a fan, you get smoothie on the ceiling. Doesn't work so well. Everything has to realize what it is. And even if it doesn't know the name, doesn't matter. You just trust. Allow that you've been created as a perfect instrument for exactly what is meant to flow through you. All you have to do is get connected. Because no matter how expensive or beautiful or wonderful any of these things may be, if they're not connected to the outlet, to the electrical source, you don't get anything from them. So our duty is to make sure we're connected. However we connect, whatever that spiritual path that we are walking may be, we connect and then we trust and we allow that divine flow to flow through us. My personal prayer every day hasn't changed in almost 30 years, is just, oh God, empty me. Empty me of all the ignorance, the ego, the ideas, the attachments about who I think I am, what I think I need, what I think the universe is. Empty me. Because the more empty I am, the more space there is for you to flow through me. And it hasn't failed me yet. So it's not that you have to have it all figured out. Just let yourself be that empty, clear instrument. Yes, beautiful. I don't know what our timing is, so Diane, I leave it entirely up to you.
No, I'm leaving it up to you.
Okay, so why don't we take two more, those two, and then we'll bring it to a close.
Thank you so much for sharing such powerful ideas in such a beautiful way. My question is actually related to the previous question. So I wanted to ask, what can we do about pain and suffering that others feel because of desires and expectations that they have attached to us? And I mean, all of us want to reduce their pain and we want to do whatever we can, but we also don't want to be the person who cuts the cocoon too early and doesn't let the butterfly suffer to actually learn how to fly.
Yeah, God, wouldn't it be so nice if we could just alleviate other people's suffering and give them enlightenment and show them the way? Unfortunately, we can't. The very best thing that you can do is to see that person as soul, as divinity, as the fullness of who they are. And to hold that vision and to hold that space so that should they choose, they can expand and grow into it. You can't force it. Every single person has come into this world with their own karmic package, their own karmic journey. We cannot magic wand somebody else's karmic journey. And that's not our duty anyway. And you know, sometimes that suffering is actually important. You know, I'll tell you a personal story about this. I'm an only child. And when I first told my parents I was moving to India, as you can imagine, my mom was not super excited about that. I mean, imagine that you have a daughter who one day is walking the most kind of standard successful academic life, And the next day she announces that she's, moving to an ashram in India, and not excited about it at all. Very much did not want me to do this. If my highest goal had simply been alleviate her suffering, do what she wants, forsake my dharmic calling to pop out a bunch of babies, down the block from her, which was pretty much what she wanted me to do. We wouldn't be where we are today. And where we are today is that my mom, at 81, is living with me in Rishikesh. 4 years ago, she had a very, very tragic stroke, a brain hemorrhage stroke. Lost all sense of kind of who she is, ability to care for herself. My dad and I did everything we could in LA to best doctors, best this, nothing worked. So I brought her to Rishikesh. Now you think about it. This woman is going to, whenever the time is, leave her body on the banks of Ganga, right? I mean, you think how many lifetimes of punya, of merit, do you do to get to drop your body on the banks of Ganga? But if 29 years ago I had not stayed steadfast in my dharma, I would have deprived her of that opportunity that who knows how many lifetimes she had been coming back and working to have this lifetime in which she lives out her last years and drops her body on the banks of Ganga. So it's really important to find that balance between living with compassion, with caring, with love, and yet not feeling like we are somehow here responsible for someone else's karmic journey. And to deprive them of the lessons. I mean, even before her stroke and before moving to India, the way that she had changed over the previous 25 years that I'd been in India, it was huge. And if I had not stayed anchored in what my dharma was, and I had tried to just ease her suffering of my kids gone off to India, I would have deprived her of all those lessons she was meant to learn, all that transformation she was meant to have. So no one is here on earth with the express dharma of making sure that other people, especially their family members, don't have to learn whatever karmic lessons they're here to learn. That's not your job. Your job is to live with as much clarity, anchoring, connection, compassion, truth, courage, and then hold that space for other people to step into their truth. They step into it in this lifetime, beautiful. If not, they'll step into it next lifetime or the time after that, right? I mean, the universe is infinitely patient. Yeah, beautiful. Last.
Hello. I just wanted to thank you, for doing this. I'm very grateful to be here. My name is Himali. I'm from India. And my question to you is, oftentimes in life, even though we feel our purpose or our dharma, we feel a calling towards doing something with our life. I'm myself a poet, I'm a writer. And how do we deal with the situation when our parents, who are quite overprotective of you, and they want to see the best for you, but they kind of want to stop you from doing certain things. And also, my question mainly is, how do you deal with people? Not deal is not the right word, but how do you manage situations where people try to control you? Thank you.
Yeah, this is a really big, common situation we see. And it requires balance. And it requires a lot of what I was just talking about. The highest goal in life, in our spiritual life, highest goal is what we call moksha, right? Liberation. I mean, that, according to our spiritual tradition and teachings, that's why we've taken birth as humans. That's why we've been given this gift of a human birth, is to have liberation. In that, we have to walk our highest path. To do what someone else wants just because they want it, even when it's against your dharma, is to be stuck. It is the opposite of freedom. But to do the opposite of what someone else wants just because they want it is also to be stuck. We mistake that for freedom. And we see that a lot in youth. Parents want you to do A, therefore you decide I'm going to do Z. Not because I'm necessarily deeply called to Z, but because it is my way of expressing my freedom. You're just as much a slave. So you need to be really clear, and this is why our own spiritual practice is so important, because otherwise I'm acting as a slave based on what you want. Either I'm doing it or I'm doing the opposite of it. Either way, I'm stuck. In your meditation, in your prayer, I mean, literally make that your prayer. Oh God, oh divine, oh higher self, however you speak. Show me the way. Show me where to turn. Use me. Use me as an instrument. You're a poet, you're a writer, beautiful. However, being a writer, being a creative of any sort, is not always lucrative. If your parents say you should not be a poet or a writer, you should be a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer or a business person, and you say, no, I want to be a writer, fine. But then you don't get to go back to your parents and say, I don't have any money, can you please pay my rent? See, it's a package deal. May you be blessed that you are a well-to-do, financially supported by the universe writer. But if not, then you need to be prepared to live as a simple, not so well-to-do creative in that commitment to living your dharma. Or you decide, as many creatives have over the years, this isn't lucrative. I don't want to write with what will sell as my guiding point in my mind because that stifles my creativity. Therefore, I'm going to get another job. A simple 9-to-5 kind of punching a time clock job that I can walk out of at 5 o'clock. I don't have to think too much about it. I'll have my evenings, I'll have my weekends to do all the writing I want. You get to decide this. But you just have to realize it's a package deal. And so if you're gonna fully not do what they want, then you don't get to expect them to keep working to support you. But you remember that ultimately your highest dharma isn't so much about the poems you're going to write or what you're going to write. It's about how you are going to grow and realize your true self through that. Because then through it, whether it's a poem, whether it's a book, whether it's an article, or whether it's a meal that you're serving as a waitress to somebody sitting at the counter, you are going to be a channel, an expression, an instrument of that flow of the divine. And there's, so many beautiful stories also in the scriptures of beautiful, awakened, enlightened beings as cobblers, right? We have all of these stories. You don't have to be a well-to-do, successful, celebrated person in your field in order to be that beautiful channel of the divine. And then you just hold it and you live it and you recognize that maybe a part of their karmic journey is to learn to see art for the value that it is. Because we certainly need a lot more of that in the world. We need a lot more people recognizing the value of art, of culture. And maybe that's a piece of your dharma, is to stand as someone prepared to have whatever your income may be so that you can pursue that. But just make sure that it's coming directly from that divine flow, not in rebellion against or in just acquiescence to. Either way. And really just keep checking in and checking in and checking in. Yes. Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Of course. So beautiful to be with you all today, and such gratitude to Diane, to all of the beautiful team here, and of course to Puja Swami Sarvapriyananda ji for opening this beautiful space, for creating this beautiful space of wisdom, of love, of action, of truth here in the midst of New York City. And so much love to all of you.
And thank you. And all of the above that you said about us, we can say the same thing to you. Much gratitude.